So the next morning I'm up early and in the hot springs to watch the sunrise. As usual, it's a little different every day, and today's one of the best. Marge and I plan on going back to Man Lake today and testing the water and see if it'll give up one of those big cutthroat. On the way up there, we see a buck antelope out in a field on Man Lake Ranch. And a few does are milling around here in the edge of their alfalfa field. We keep going north and pretty soon we come to Man Lake. There are a couple egrets out here in the lake feeding. A little horned grebe swims by us. He stays on top of the water sometimes, and other times he dives after something to eat below the surface. Marge goes out and gets her prize cutthroat trout that she had caught here a little bit ago. And wow, what a fish. That is really the nicest one we caught on this trip in Man Lake. And that's going to make some darn good eating. A big fat white pelican is out in front of us here now. He's doing a little fishing on his own there, trying to fill his pouch and his beak both. But actually, that pouch is only for expansion, and when he catches a fish, he swallows it. That's just so when he dives in the water, that can expand, and he can catch some fish there to swallow. They're quite a large bird, and they're always very businesslike and very elegant as they swim around out here looking for fish. There's been a bug hatch, and there's just swarms of these bugs around the lake. I guess you know what those fish. The only photos my little camera caught were magpies. Plenty of magpies showed up. I baited it with a chicken egg just to see what would eat chicken eggs, and the magpies and crows are supposed to be big egg eaters. But this guy rolled it around and checked it out, but never did eat. We'll go to Borax Lake and check out the old borax operation. They boiled the borax in these tanks to prepare it for shipment, and they shipped it in 20 mule team wagons to Winnemucca, where it was put on a rail. The tanks were heated by burning sagebrush until they burned all of it. Then they had to shut the operation down. There's an entire series of little hot springs. Some of them are boiling hot and others are cool, but this one you can see it's steaming. It's real hot, and it even has a little natural bridge in it and then a layer of mineral around the outside. Makes it really pretty. And some of these, they're farther up, there's some you can use, but these are entirely too hot and unpredictable. I definitely wouldn't use them. A Great Basin gopher snake has crawled out of his hibernation den and is out slithering across the warm ground around the hot springs. They're the first to come out of hibernation. They do way before the rattlesnakes. Hot springs, one pool was too hot, the other was too cool. On the way back, a pronghorn takes to hoof here. They're the world's fastest long-distance runners. Several animals are faster on the short distance, but these are made to run. They don't even have deep dew claws so they can run. A horned lizard is relying upon his camouflage to hide in front of it. These are anteaters, and they only eat a certain type of ant, which is out here in the desert. A small bunch of mule deer sneak right by our camp and go up along the little seep spring here and disappear in the sagebrush. We have my sailor out on the desert and the wind's blowing, so Marge and I hurry up and get out there and get on it. And boy did we go. We went flying across the desert here. Pretty soon we noticed a real bad sounding axle on the Landsailer. We looked and we'd burned one of the bearings out and we'd broke the other wheel. So I had to fix it. So I went down to Carl's and he had some PVC plastic pipe. I made a new bearing out of the plastic pipe and Carl let me use his welder, and so I welded the wheel that was broke and we were able to sail once again out across the desert with only the wind to propel us. What a feeling to go out here and under a pretty blue sky with a few fluffy white clouds and the Steens Mountains standing tall, guarding over us in the background. I steer this sailing contraption with my feet. That way I have both hands available to run the sail and both eyes are available to watch a beautiful scenery as it goes past us as we just barely touch the ground going across the playa at a really good pace. Every day that we're out here, we notice a little bit less snow on top of the Steens Mountains. I guess it's getting that time of year, and it's supposed to be a really bad drought year here. So probably there's not as much snow as usual up there. That snow melts and sometimes comes right down on the desert here. I make the long journey up on top of the Steens Mountains. I see an early American cave shelter here on top the mountain, and over across from me I see where there was some mining activity went on over here. There's the mine right there. It was for recovering mercury from the stone here, and here's some of the equipment they recovered it with. They would heat this mercury and it evaporates from the stone. The stone is called cinnabar and it'll evaporate the mercury. And here's the mine. This is the first year I've seen this grate and culvert in there. It has a place where you can lock it, although it wasn't locked at this time. The BLM has put this on most of the old mines up here. I leave the mine and head down the trail. A ways down there, I find a second mine out where you can overlook the playa of the Alvord Desert. I climb down a very steep bank where there's a bunch of old boards and stuff here. And there it is, that neat little old mine right down below. So I'll sneak down there and take a look inside and see what's in it. These miners like to dig holes, and this mine is one that sunk straight down again. There's a rickety old ladder in it, with even one rung broke. I got around where I could look in it fairly well, and I didn't see a darn thing down in there other than that ladder. They had even had a little structure on the outside of it there, maybe for storing tools and different things. Everything's homemade. Their pulleys here are old car wheels that they've improvised here to run their cables over. I go on down the hill from the mine, and here's the old house that they lived in down here. It's in sort of bad repair here. Every year I go there, I'm expecting to see it no longer standing, but it's standing, and there's also a magpie nest right out in front of it. The magpies always build a covered nest like this, and then they go in and out that little hole there, and this nest was active. The magpies were doing a lot of fussing and grumbling around about me being there. But I didn't spend long, and I didn't get close to bother them.
In their covered nest, and there must be eggs or babies in there, because the old mama magpie sure making a ruckus around here. The old cabin's pretty well had it. The front's pretty well gone on it. And their stove is setting outside. There's an old swallow nest from last year that's fallen down here. And they've sure got a big picture window here now, since the whole ends fell out of it. The couch looks to me like it's pretty well worn out. There's a barn swallow nest, and it must be active now too, because the barn swallows are sure swooping around. Whoever built this cabin here must have enjoyed the view out there. And there's even a little meadow out front here where probably a lot of wild.
The buckwheat family is very well represented here. And there's a little Great Basin gopher snake crawling across the road. I make an attempt to get him out of the road before someone runs over him, and he doesn't seem to appreciate my efforts much at all. These gopher snakes are quite numerous out here. Some call them the bull snake in this area, and they're non-venomous. They're a constrictor. So they grab a hold of something and squeeze it to death instead of using venom on it. The only thing, if one were to bite you, he can leave some of those little teeth that he uses to hold a rodent or something. He could leave them in you, and you have to take a pair of tweezers and pull them out. Maybe it's better just to go ahead and not get bit by one. The snakes are just now coming out of hibernation, and when a snake's eating a rodent or something, you can see a lump on their belly. But I saw no lumps on them, so maybe they haven't got around to eating yet. Usually the gopher snake comes out before the rattlesnakes do, but I've heard 2 or 3 people had seen rattlesnakes here, although we seen none this trip. They can look very intimidating, and they do a lot of hissing. I guess that's a way of saying, back off, you've came close enough. They can actually coil, and they do a lot of striking too. While I'm here, I wanted to go out and check on the herd of wild horses over on the east side of the playa of the Alvord Desert. There's always a herd over there, and this year I see something different. I see a total white horse there that I've never seen before, and this herd is known as the sheep's head herd of horses. While I'm standing here filming those few horses, I hear the thunder of hooves, and up out of the draw right below me come a whole herd of these magnificent wild horses going up there as fast as they can go, running through the sagebrush. And a cloud of dust and the rumble of hooves on the desert floor, they disappear into a sea of sagebrush almost as quick as they appeared. One should avoid chasing these horses, and in a motor vehicle you should always stay to the existing roads and trails. Otherwise you'll be tearing up the desert and running these animals too much. When there gets to be too many of them, the BLM come out here and capture a few, and you can adopt these horses at a few different adoption places around Oregon. There's one at Burns and another over around Ontario or Vail or someplace where this sheep's head herd probably is adopted out. By now I'm out in the desert a considerable distance, but I can look back and see the Steens Mountains guiding me back almost as if it were a lighthouse. Any place where you're around where there's a herd of wild horses, you'll see these stallion piles. This is where the stallion manure is, and they always go in the same spot each day, or about the same spot each day, depending on where they are, and that way they leave their scent so other stallions know whose territory they're in. A tiny cloud is hanging over the summit of the Steens Mountains, and that reminds me it's about time. I better be heading back where we're camped. An excellent way to start the day out is to get in the hot springs and watch the sunrise over the playa of the Alvord Desert. Usually there's no one here at that time of day, so it gives you some time to reflect and plan the day as to what you're going to do. So I'm trying to figure out what I want to do today. Do I want to go fishing, or do I want to take pictures, or do I want to go for a hike? There's some difficult decisions that have to be made out here. The going fishing thing seems to have won out, so we're heading toward Man Lake. There's usually always an antelope or two around. Along Man Lake Ranch here, they have some alfalfa that those antelopes seem to think is pretty darn good eating. A little welcoming committee of red-headed blackbirds set perched on a rail here right as you go in Man Lake for all who look to see. Some little sandpipers are hurrying around here gouging in the mud at water's edge to see if they can find their next meal. Even the tiny little flowers are blooming along lake's edge here. This is the little beadhead fly that seems to work quite well here. Here's what we're using, and then we wade out a little way, not too far because the bigger fish are in closer, and we cast out, and then we do a retrieve like this. Little jerks. And I keep the pole tip kind of low, and then do this little jerk retrieve like this. A little pause between, and then a little jerk, and a little pause, and a little jerk. As we leave Man Lake and head south, two big buck antelope appear out of nowhere, and in true antelope style, they have to race us and run across the road in front of us. We're trying to get rid of them. We slow up and we're staying way behind them, because just as sure as you can bet on it, they're going to race across the road right in front of you when you get up close to them. And that's the way a lot of antelope get run over. So maybe if we stop, they'll go ahead and crawl through the fence or run on their way. But when we stop, they just seem to stop. We haven't gone very far, but it seems like they're a little bit played out. Maybe they've been running down here ahead of someone else. But there's some open range ahead of us with no fence. If they can just make it up there, then they can run out across the sagebrush in true antelope style. These critters just won't jump a fence very often. I have seen them do it, but not too often, although they definitely have the ability to do it. They can jump a sagebrush and clear it by feet, but they just won't go over a fence. They like to crawl through it. It appears like they're going to make it. Maybe they'll be more careful about getting caught in the road. We don't want to stay out too late tonight, because in the morning, before it even gets light, we're going to head toward Krumbo Reservoir and try to catch us some of those big trout over there. The next morning, we slept a little longer than we wanted. The sun was just starting to raise as we went down the road just a little ways and stopped and took these pictures. And by the time we reached the Catlow Valley and this old homestead house, looks like an old gander Canadian honker goose has taken up residence there, and he thinks he owns it now. And then we look around, and here's an old mama goose out there walking around. They must have a nest, and he's on watch duty, guard duty right now. They must have a nest of eggs around in the grass someplace around here, because we see both geese there. The old mama goose is waddling around here trying to lead us away from the nest, but we're not coming over there anyway. She doesn't have to worry. Past French Glen, then we see the sign that says Krumbo Reservoir Road. There's a mailbox here with a couple wheels on an old tank there. I guess it's supposed to represent an old steam engine or something there, but it doesn't look like the real deal. We cross the valley here, go through some little rocky rims here, and then we'll drop down on Krumbo Reservoir within a few minutes here. We hurry down to the reservoir and start fishing, and right away I've got one on him. Boy, he feels like a good one. He's putting up a genuine good fight here.
Oh, you want me to lay the camera down and...
No, I'll get him.
You'll get him?
He makes run after run, stripping out yards and yards of line each time he does it. My pole is zinging and clicking here, and the line is pulled tight as this fish fights for his life in the waters of Krumbo Reservoir. Finally, he can fight no more and moves to the surface, and I pull him in so I can get him in that net, and we're going to have us another fish dinner, it looks like here, if I do this right. But he could still get away, so some caution must be used at this point. Looks like my net is a little too small for this size fish, but I have to make it work.
Bring him in. There. You got him. Good for you.
Wow. Look at that fish, would you?
Was that worth your trip here?
Yep.
How long do you think he is?
I don't know. We've got a tape here.
We were catching some fish from shore, but we had bought this little rubber raft some time ago and haven't even tried it out. So I went up and pumped it up while Marge fished, and so I'm pulling in now, and I'll pick her up and we'll go out in the raft and see if we can do better out in the raft. I tie the raft up to the bank here, and we're going to fish from the bank a little while longer. And it looks like there's a bite in here, so we're catching a few right from the bank. I have another one on here. I'm fighting him up next to shore, and he's no small fish either. He's not as big as the other one, but he's still pretty darn nice. And straight into the net he goes. So this means we've got another fish for our stringer, for our fish feed. Then it's Marge's turn. One bites on her pole. She gets all excited as she reels him up next to shore and sees what a nice big fish he really is.
You can get the net?
Yeah, I got the net.
I'm going to lose him.
Ooh, don't let him get under that boat again.
I'll bring him up on this side.
Okay, bring him right up over here in the shade.
Okay. Oh, stop running.
Push, don't lift him out of the water.
Okay, don't. Here. Get your net in there. Here, I'll bring him over. Want to bring him over?
Okay, bring him over.
Okay. Got him.
Okay, here.
A little pair of horned grebes float past us as they're on their daily search for food out here in Krumbo Reservoir. It's finally time to set sail in our rubber raft here. So we take off in the raft, and sure enough, within just a few feet, we have one on. We're trolling Ford fenders with a wedding ring and then a small worm on that. And that really seemed to be working good there. I catch one fish after another, till pretty soon I have my limit.
He must be out there quite a ways. Here, can you get him?
Maybe.
I can get him. Okay, bring him up. Okay, bring him over. Okay. Here, bring him up this way. He went under the boat. He's gonna get, I knew that.
Okay. Okay, here he goes.
I got him.
There, now. Get your line free of the net.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, it's a nice one. Oh, the plane run. Wow. He's just really taking some line. He's a fighter. You about ready to net him?
Mm-hmm.
Look at him go. You think my drag's too loose? Huh?
I'll tighten it a little if you want.
Okay, here he comes. Okay, here. You got the net? There, you got him.
Wow, he's a heavy one.
There. Is it? Let me lift my pole out of the way. This is Tom's last fish. He limited out. His 5th fish. Just a second. You got the net?
Yeah, it's right here. You see how big he is?
No, let's see here. Bring him out some.
He looks to be a pretty nice one.
Bring him into your net. You got him? There, you got him. Good job. You outdone me this year. You got the biggest fish and the most fish so far. Did he come off the hook?
He's coming. You better reel your. Okay.
Okay. Well, that is a nice one.
Bring him in.
Here. I'm going to bring him up on this side.
Okay,
You
that's
want-
better.
You want to get the net?
Yeah, I got the net right here.
How about giving a little slap?
Okay, just lift your pole up and we'll get him over here.
And we just lift it up and bring him.
Swing him over this way. Oh, he's a big one.
Got him.
Wow, he is a biggie. I think he's 20 inches.
Well, he's the biggest one I got.
Maybe we...
He's still there. He's trying to get off. Wow. Let him run?
Yeah. Play him out a little bit.
Shoot.
You didn't put your drag too tight, did you?
Yeah.
There.
He's a fighter.
Bring him over on this side. Yeah, let him play himself out. Pull him in now.
I guess I got that drag just almost too tight. Let's see. He is a fighter, and he's not a big fish. It might,
Lift your pole up now.
here he comes. Got him. That's my limit. That's the biggest one.
Okay.
Oh, look at here.
Twins?
That one is just a hair bigger. I caught the biggest one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I'll be darned. Look at that. Here. I'll hold these two big ones up. You caught this one, and I caught this one. See?
We have our limit of fish now, so it's time for us to head back to our camp. An old swan stands out in the field. We go to French Glen to go to the old hotel. Maybe we can get some more ice to put on our fish here at the old hotel. The old hotel is still open, and you can rent a room there for a rather steep price, and you can even eat family-type meals there. From French Glen, we head south along the Catlow Valley, right at the last bit of sunshine of the day. The sun is just getting ready to dip behind the hills here over the Heart Mountain Desert area there. The sun sets between some old dried up woolly mullein bushes from last year. We're along Highway 205 heading south from French Glen. This highway, it's very seldom you see another car on it, so it's perfectly quiet and peaceful here. And the sun is setting over the giant Catlow Valley here. This valley seems to go on forever. It was at one time an old ancient lake bed, and it is huge. Silently, the sun disappears behind the horizon. A few cattle are still grazing out on the humongous Roaring Springs Ranch. The sun set, but it's still not all over yet. The sky is turning every color in the rainbow now, after the sun has already set. It's already getting dark on us, and we haven't had supper yet, so we better get back to our camp. And we gotta start packing to... The next morning, the sun seemed to rise with the same magnificence and splendor of the setting sun the night before, but we have to be heading out this morning. So as soon as we get that sun up, we're going to head out. But we almost ran out of gas last night. We tried, when we were coming home from fishing, we tried to get gas at French Glen, couldn't. We stopped at Fields and they were closed too. But the next morning, we happened to meet a man at the hot springs with 2 dogs who had a couple gallon of gas we could borrow. He and the 2 dogs rode the Honda ATV out and picked up the gas out at their vehicle and brought it to us. We poured the gas in and then we were ready to head out.
Some antelope are out filling their bellies full of something nice and green. It tastes pretty good to 'em, I believe. This little buck is pretty fancy, and he's nibbling away at whatever he thinks might be really good eating. A little horned toad is out trying to catch him an ant. They only eat about one type of ant. I see the ants crawl over 'em all the time, and they don't seem to get 'em. I don't know what's wrong that he's not grabbing those ants. Maybe he's afraid of us. Then some mule deer take to hoof right behind where we're camped.